Welcome to Staples.
Staples Guy. I've resolved to save my office money in 2017.
During Staples' January printing event, you can get up to $80 off a lightning-fast HP OfficeJet Pro printer. It can save time and money.
Oh, that kind of savings will impress the boss. Maybe this year he'll stop calling me New Guy Nick.
Well, there are worse nicknames.
I've worked there 6 years, and my name's Doug.
Resolve to save during Staples' January printing event with up to $80 off HP OfficeJet Pro printers. Staples. Make more happen.
Ends 1/21/17. See store or staples.com for details. Restrictions may apply.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to the Parenting Aces radio show presented by tennisballs.com on Blog Talk Radio's You Are Tennis Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and we've got with us today Coach Bill Patton. And Bill has been a guest on this show a couple of times in the past, and for those of you who have listened to our previous conversations, we've got some new topics to discuss today, and I'm looking very forward to having Bill on. I want to just say a quick thank you again to the new sponsor of the Parenting Aces radio show, tennisballs.com. I encourage all of you, if you haven't already, to sign up to receive their email updates. They send out newsletters 2 or 3 times a week. It's not too overwhelming. But also check out their website, tennisballs.com, for all the latest happenings around the world, mainly dealing with the professional side of tennis, but they also every now and then will cover some junior and collegiate stuff. And, you know, I write for them every now and then too, so if you see something written by me, you can pretty much assume it's going to either cover junior or college tennis, or sometimes I'll write about my own tennis exploits for them, so maybe a little women's league kind of stuff. But anyway, be sure and visit our sponsor, tennisballs.com. We love to give them the support and appreciate them so very much. And I want to just give you a little background on Bill Patton, today's guest. Bill is a coach in the Northern California area, and I love, he sent me a little bio, and I kind of just want to read it because it's really funny. So I'm going to just read it. And here's what Bill has to say about himself. Bill has always colored outside the lines. He used to take his toys apart to see how they worked. He turned those experiences into a strength. Now he creates innovative templates so that others can build on success and make it their own. He is most proud of winning an NCS championship and becoming a published author for the first time. Once, when trying to speak another language to a player, he thought he was asking if she was embarrassed, but he used the word for pregnant. That got sorted out later. Bill and his business partner, Sterling Struther, who has also been a guest on this show, have started USA Tennis Coach LLC, which trains, certifies, mentors, and collaborates with high school tennis coaches. Bill is a USPTA Elite, PTR, and MTM professional, and has his courses featured on CoachTube.com. So we are very, very lucky to have Bill with us today, and let me get him on the air. Bill, are you there?
I am here. How are you, Lisa?
I am fantastic. I have gotten my workout in. I'm watching some Australian Open replays that I missed while I actually slept last night, and it's a good day so far.
Okay, so you're watching that now?
Well, it's on in the background. So,
okay, all right.
You know.
No, it's fair enough. It's fair enough. Yeah.
No sound, just visuals.
Nice.
I have to say, they're airing the Rafa match again right now. So those of you who've been following me for a while know that I'm a big fan of Rafa Nadal. So, Bill, I promise to stay focused on our conversation, though.
Okay, thank you. I know it will be hard, so all right.
So you've got a whole bunch of irons in the fire these days, and you and I stay in pretty close contact, mostly via social media stuff. You post a lot, and I comment on that, and I post a lot, and you comment on my stuff. And so I would love for you to just kind of share what's going on, and maybe we can kind of start, because you have been working with Sterling, and y'all are really working on kind of establishing yourselves as an online presence in the tennis coaching arena. And I would love for you to talk about what online tennis instruction looks like, maybe, some general points about it, how people can gauge whether an online course is worth the money, worth the time, effective, yada, yada.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Well, the first thing is there are attitudes about online instruction, and so people have kind of a preconceived notion of what's there, what's good, and they also have preconceived notions about what they want to see, and it might not be what they need to see. So people are going for dessert because life is short, and so really people need to eat a little more of their meat and vegetables. So let's take it from a coach's perspective, because I see a range of acceptance of online instruction, from panning it all together. 95% of it is garbage. I don't encourage my players to look at that at all, and that's completely on one end of the spectrum. And then you have those that make the stuff, and so. And in the middle, you have people who say, okay, there's some value there, but it's not really worth my time to discuss it with my students, and a full range of things in between that. I think the message Sterling and I want to get across is that as coaches, when our players are bringing to us this online instruction that they're looking at, we want to affirm that. The first message is, wow, you went out of your way to gain some extra information. That's terrific. Instead of feeling offended or like that's competition in the marketplace of ideas, and we're not sure if we can compete. I'll give you an example. I have a student who comes to me, and he sends me clips of these YouTube videos in my email, and he says, what do you think of this? And, I'm honored by that. At first I was like, well, do I really want to spend 4 minutes watching this? And then I realized that if I took the time to look at it, that in our next lesson, he and I could talk about it. We could experiment with it. I could help him discover if it was really a valuable lesson or not, if it applied to him or not. And really at the core of it, it's all about athlete-centered coaching, and that's a phrase that we're going to use a lot. We want to promote a lot because athlete-centered coaching affirms when the player goes out of their way and is proactively gaining their own education, they're becoming more of a decision maker about how they want to play. So. There have been some videos that I don't think I told my students this, but, I was like, wow, I learned a lot about how to teach tennis in that video. So, but I don't divulge that directly to him. And, then there's some stuff where I'm like, no, not really. This doesn't look so great because, for you it doesn't fit because it doesn't fit your style, or, there's an injury risk. And so at the end of the day, what happens is by being open to online instruction and looking at it, then as coaches we only gain greater credibility with our students, a stronger relationship, more trust, and then as we model the ideas that we're also learning along with them, then we are better examples. So that's kind of the overview of the whole thing. In the range of, if we go to the range of what's available, it's really interesting. Both Sterling and I have posted a lot of videos on YouTube, which we've since pulled. I pulled a lot of mine because I created a course called The Art of Coaching High School Tennis, and I found a very interesting thing that I was going through a very sequential process of kind of taking a coach, A to Z, start here, and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 15 different videos. And the really important ones about building your coaching philosophy and setting goals and how to work with players and how to teach, nobody was watching that. But what were they tuning into? Yeah, so what do? They go for dessert. They go for footwork drills and technique and other group drills for players on court. And I'm thinking, wow, that's really interesting, because what they want is they want to build a house without any foundation. You know.
Right. So let me just ask you. I'm going to interrupt you a minute and ask you, Bill, because there is such a proliferation of information available online now for tennis coaches and tennis players, how do you suggest that coaches and players and parents kind of sort the wheat from the chaff? I mean, there's a lot of garbage out there, you have to admit. There's also a lot of gems out there.
Absolutely. And so, see, this is where when you have a coach who you're working with, then really as part of the player-parent-coach relationship, then all of that gets negotiated. The analogy that Sterling and I came up with yesterday, it would be like, even if you have all good sources, and you have like 3 or 4 or 5 different sources that you go to, it's like opening up 3 different puzzles. And so you have your 1,000-piece puzzle over here, and you have a 650-piece puzzle there, and a 100-piece puzzle, and you just mix all the puzzle pieces together, and now you're going to make one puzzle out of all these things. So you pick one up and you go, wait, this doesn't really fit with that. So the training of a tennis player is really such a cohesive art that, it'd be like taking Michelangelo, and he's halfway done with the Sistine Chapel, and go, hey, we're pulling you, and we're going to let somebody else finish it up. When you have a coach that you're working with, then I think you run it through the filter of them and let the player's voice ought to be very strong in selecting, some of these sources and deciding how they want to play, because ultimately they have to own the game.
Do you suggest that coaches maybe build up a repertoire or a library of online instruction that maybe they suggest to players and parents as a supplement to what the coach is actually doing on and off the court with that player?
That's genius. That's really a terrific idea. And, think of all the time savings, too, because then you can direct your student to that, and they watch that off court. And then you can come back, and they've had time to process it. So much of the education of a tennis player, and any educational pursuit, deals with processing. They say that kids learn what they got in first period, they learn it in second period. And what they got in second period, they learn it in third period because they've had a chance to think it through. So we're modeling the same thing. Now, what we're doing is we're trying to be a lot more effective than just having a lesson on the umpteenth lesson on how to hit a forehand like Roger Federer, or how to hit the power forehand. I just saw something the other day, the ultimate power forehand. I'm like, okay, well that's great, but in what context? When are you going to hit that shot? So,
right.
For instance, we've got I did a course on how to get your players to the net, and so that's almost a 50-minute course on taking players, up, progressing, and possibly regressing, so that you can build up their confidence so that they can become effective net players. And then we also talk about what are some of the potential issues, a whole menu of issues that players may encounter as they're trying to become effective net players. So it's a template, and so people can, take from that, and they can use. It's very scalable, and I think that's one of the magic things. If what you're doing is scalable, then it's very usable for coaches and players, and they can begin to understand because there's also, so we're not doing what everybody else is doing. Another course that we've developed recently was how to help a player discover their ideal two-handed backhand style. Because, within the USTA parameters, there are 4 distinct styles that are within the parameters. But my question to coaches is, here's your quiz. Coaches that are listening, parents that are listening, players, how many styles does your coach teach? A large percentage of what is taught as a two-handed backhand is, all right, here, hit it like it's a left-handed forehand. In my experimentation over 2.5 years, I've found that applies to about 25 to maybe 30% of the players out there. But the other 3 styles are about equally represented. One style is actually fairly rare, and that's the one that resembles the old Bjorn Borg style. But there's still people that hit that right-hand dominant two-handed backhand. So then we present these things. We talk about, we talk about Craig O'Shaughnessy's data that he shared from the IBM thing about 63% of points were won when players attacked the net to the other player's backhand on all points combined at the 2015 U.S. Open. And coaches, frankly, think that we must be on drugs when we say that, but it's purely factual information. We're facing this thing where a coach teaches one style, and because that's the style they know or that's the style they prefer. So what happens to those kids that doesn't fit who they are and their skills? It doesn't fit their spin preference. It doesn't fit how ambidextrous they are. It doesn't fit. It doesn't flow which is their dominant hip to come through. So it comes back again to athlete-centered coaching. So everything that we do is about being athlete-centered.
Well, and you bring up a really interesting point, because in a situation like the one you just described, where the stroke taught doesn't fit the athlete, either the athlete's going to stagnate in their development, or they're going to become really frustrated, I should say, or they're going to become really frustrated and give up on the game, or they're going to figure out that they're not moving forward and change coaches. So in any of those 3 scenarios, the coach loses out, right? So it's in the coach's best interest to have an arsenal of ways to teach, strokes to teach, styles to teach. I mean, it goes back to that whole thing of, working with visual learners versus auditory learners versus kinesthetic learners. I mean, you have to be able to teach all of these different types of students.
Yes. Don't get me started on brain modalities, but in a nutshell, the whole learning styles thing made Howard, what's his name? He's from Harvard, and he came up with the multiple intelligences theory, and he got mad when he thought it was dumbed down into learning styles, but that's a subject for another day.
Right.
So people have different modalities that they're comfortable with, and so yes, you need to be able to address people from their strength, but you also need to build up their weakness. And you nailed it. And, it's really about the player. And one thing that's very gratifying is that people who've taken the course and then begun to apply it, they find that their players are in joy, that they have made a discovery. And really see the player discovers their style. I don't force a player into a style. We just go through this process of going, okay, here, try hitting a few left-handed forehands. Try hitting a one-handed backhand. Let's see what happens. Hey, now, I think maybe this will be your style. Let's try it out. Okay, it looks pretty good. What do you think? Let's try the next style. Do you like that one better than this one? Do you like the third one better than the first two? Do you like the final one better? And then every once in a while you get this shot. In the course, one thing that was awesome is that every kid, we were meeting kids for the first time and giving them their first ever lesson with us, and each kid of the four represented each of the four different styles, and each one hit that magical crushed shot. And it was a jaw dropper. So, that's a lot of fun. And so I think coaches, that want to take that course, I think it's really going to benefit you and your students, and the joy that you will see in your players, it will be palpable. So I'm really happy about that.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about your online courses, Bill. They're geared toward coaches, but players could also benefit from them. Yes.
Absolutely. And what you'll see, here's the other tricky thing that happens. Okay, so typically what you get is a coach with a highly trained player, and possibly someone that they've worked with for years and years and years, who knows the drill, right? Showing you how to do it. Well, okay, that's beautiful, but do you have years and years and years? So when we do stuff, we're doing the high wire with no net. All the lessons are with people we have never taught before. And that's exciting. I mean, it's thrilling. It's like really puts you under pressure. So what you see is us meeting people for the first time, teaching them how to do this stuff, and you see the magic. The other thing you see is people you can relate to. They're not perfect. People will look at some of these courses and they will have ticky-tack criticisms about some of the fundamentals, and that's how their mind goes, and that's fine, but we already account for that. We're saying, hey, look at these styles. We're teaching styles. We're not teaching, perfect stances and perfect grips and all that. We're just introducing the styles, and we would go about fine-tuning those things, if we were going to continue to work with those people over the period of time, just like you would. So,
right.
And players and parents, looking at that, may even want to share that with their coach and say, hey, we have some, just like my students do with me. My students share videos with me, and I learned from it, and we include those ideas. So ultimately, the best thing to be is someone who models lifelong learning. It's really amazing the effect that has on your students and your parents when you show that you're not necessarily the guy with all the answers.
For sure. Well, so you talked about your two-handed backhand style course, and you alluded to the Get to the Net course. Another one that you have, and it's one that's near and dear to my heart, is Play College Tennis. And given that we're in the first week of the spring 27 college tennis season, let's talk a little bit more in depth about that course, and then we'll get back to the other two.
Well, yeah, and this is where, me speaking to you, the listener, who's possibly, going to be a college player, or maybe hasn't thought that you could be, if me speaking to you right now gets you to go play college tennis, then mission accomplished. That's what it's all about. So the first thing about the course is that it's about 4-star players and below. Because 5-star players, have 20 letters in their email, and in their coming in their mailbox. So it's those 4-star kids and below, and even 3, 2, 1. You can play college tennis. I mean, you could play junior college tennis, NAIA, Division 3, 2, right, and maybe even a lower Division 1 school. So
yeah, for sure.
One of the big problems, two of the really interesting things and this has been a frustration for me because I've coached a lot of players who could have played college tennis, but they either had a Division I or bust mentality, or they were so focused on a particular academic school that would be their be-all, end-all if they got into that particular school that everybody's heard of, and then, then everyone will bow down to them because they made it. Those two things, but they have no real chance of really playing at that school because that school is, one of the top, Division I schools in the nation, so they just don't really have a chance. But what they don't realize, and this is one thing that's not in the course yet, I'm actually going to add this shortly, so I'm going to give you some fresh material. One thing I advise players to do if they are a 4-star player or below is you can go into your high school counselor, and they have software that can sort schools based on major and also based on what level in athletics they play. The other thing you can do is you can go to the NCAA website and look at Division II, III, and then go to the NAIA website and look at their results. And you can find a list of the schools that made the NCAA championships, because wouldn't that be awesome to be competing for a national championship? And what will you find? You'll find Rollins. You'll find MIT. You'll find Claremont Mudd Scripps. You'll find some of the you find some of the really the finest academic institutions that you could ever imagine playing at Division II and III. So if you really want to focus on high level academics, then playing Division III tennis would be awesome, because then at that level they really allow for that. They really want their student athlete. So they're going to show you some flexibility. The other thing is, the course that I did was with Dave Borelli, who's just a fantastic guy, and he's a 7-time national championship coach. He coached at USC and TCU, and in 25 years he won 7 national championships, 18 conference championships. So the course is presented like a backyard talk or a talk in the clubhouse at the club, and so it's just me and Dave, and we're just talking about how the kids can engage with coaches and get to know them and develop a relationship, and also look for the red flags, because there's some problems that come too. I mean, we had a local gal here who ended up going to a university in the Midwest, and she was really excited to get a full ride, and then she got hurt. And it turns out that pretty much every kid on that team was hurt. So you have to know about that program. You have to know who's that coach. What's their program like? Do kids transfer away from that program? So there's some homework to be done, and we get into how to do that in the course. But even if you just started, even if you're a player out there and you start with going and looking at the schools that have made the NCAA championships in the previous year, then you're going to have a fine list.
For sure. It's funny that you mentioned that, because for those who don't know, I've been doing a series of Q&A articles for the Intercollegiate Tennis Association's website, the ITA website, and it's itatennis.com. And I'm interviewing over the course of this series coaches from a variety of schools, from top level, like you say, D1 schools, to I just did a Q&A with an NAIA coach who has won 3 men's national championships, 2 women's national championships at his NAIA school, and his team can compete with any top program in any division around the country. I mean, they are that good. And so I think a lot of times, we put those blinders on to anything outside top level D1, when in fact there are some phenomenal programs out there in the various divisions.
Yeah. And I had a young guy that I worked with that went to a school in Iowa, and he became a Hall of Famer at his school because he had a 500 record in tennis, because that school had been kind of the doormats of that league for many years. So he comes in, he's the star player, and he wins more WAC matches than anybody's won in 25 years, has a lot of fun doing it, and becomes the member of an athletic Hall of Fame. You know, you can't – championships stay with you. And a championship is something that you can draw on at a tough time in your life. When you can reflect back on being a part of something like that. I know that you know, players that I've had think back on those championship seasons that we've had, or, you know, times people rose to the occasion, and it's a life skill. That's where the life skills come in, and that's where the athlete-centered coaching is about the education of discovering what's best for you and your path, and not being a lemming and just following what you think everybody else will be impressed by.
Mm-hmm. So your online course really focuses around kind of thinking beyond power conference schools and, you know, considering. Okay.
Not necessarily, because Dave shares a story about a player who had gone to a certain school, and they were maybe in the top 5 or so, you know, something like that, very near the top. And she was number 7 on that team, and she was not on the court much because the top 6 were just a lock. So you know, she didn't really get much court time. You really need to play. See, that's the thing. People have these dreamy notions that they're going to be the number 8 player on that team, and that somehow practicing with these top players is going to make them better. But you need to play matches. So if you're not in the lineup, then that won't happen. It just won't happen. And the coach will always be recruiting higher than you. So when are you going to get your chance? It'll be, you know, a Rudy story, you know, and you know, so let's not be so dreamy. So anyway, the story though goes that this number 7 player transferred to another school and became the top player and became a team captain, and actually, I believe, well, I don't want to say this wrong, but they did, you know, they had surprisingly good success, and this player became the team captain and was so much more involved and important to that team. So that's a night and day experience than being number 7 and just being a practice partner.
Sure. And Eric Buderak talks very openly about his college tennis experience and going from, you know, a power school to a little-known school and being a standout there, and all of a sudden realizing that he had the ability to play professionally and has just come off a phenomenal career as a professional tennis player.
Yeah, he's an outstanding doubles player for sure. And so now, I wonder, with your permission, may I link your articles into our course so that people can have another resource?
Of course. I'm always happy for anyone to share my articles.
Yeah. No, I mean, because that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. We really want to collaborate with people. And, you know, I'm not the be-all, end-all, you know, and Dave's not. You know, also there's some other coaches that are contributing to what will become a book on the subject. So that's still in the process. You know, I got the online course going quickly. But the book is probably, you know, coming around in another incarnation later this year.
Fantastic. So anything else you want to share specifically about the courses that you have online now?
Just to kind of recap on that, I mean, really it's about doing things that other people aren't doing. I don't want to get lost in the shuffle of doing the same old thing. You ever heard the thing about how they asked John Lennon when he was a child what he wanted to do when he grew up, what he wanted to be when he grew up, and he said happy.
No. Oh.
Yeah. Yes, you want to be happy. And so I was reflecting on that. I don't know why I was reflecting on that ahead of this. And so I think what I always wanted to be was different. So we're doing it differently. So I think that'll be refreshing for people. I hope that will be, that we're not just going to give you another forehand lesson, and we're not gonna that we can take some pro tour stuff and apply it to use the 3-5 lady. I mean, some of the stuff that's out there that's from pros that's supposed to translate to club players, I'm not buying it. It's like, okay, we have the greatest doubles team of all time that I won't name, showing the 3-5 ladies how they can always crush their volley. I'm like, well, I don't know if that's going to happen.
It's fun to try, I gotta say. It is fun to try.
Well, and see, the two words that resonate with us the most and we really want to put out are that our stuff, we put it to the test of, is it valid and relevant? Is it valid? Is it really true for the players who are going to use it, and does it apply to what they want to do? So if it doesn't pass that test, we're not going to do it. So that's kind of my summary on that, is that we strive for valid and relevant.
And where can folks find your online courses?
Those are on CoachTube right now. And, it's really exciting to be on the same channel as, Urban Meyer and Pat Summitt and some of the great coaches in different sports. So we chose that one because the general sports outlet, and that way we're also going to reach some high school coaches that maybe are two-sport coaches. Maybe they're a football coach and a tennis coach, or they coach another sport and they also coach tennis at their school, maybe because they have to. So we're going to reach some of those people as well, and we're excited about that.
That's great. Okay, so CoachTube.com, and then tell me what do people search for once they get on there? How do they find your specific stuff?
Yeah, just put tennis, or you can put Bill Patton, and that'll pop up.
Awesome.
Surely we'll have on there soon, so we're working on that. A lot of content we still have to edit.
Okay, fantastic. So let's move on and let you update us on what's going on with USA Tennis Coach. You and Sterling were on the show a while back talking about your goals for USA Tennis Coach, and I suspect a lot of those goals have been attained and some are still works in progress, and others have probably been tweaked a bit. So let us know what's going on.
Yeah, the fun part, we haven't tweaked anything. We just did our 2016 evaluation, and we gave ourselves some pretty good scores. So, it's funny because, we were talking about, okay, we have to evaluate what's happened, and, whenever the word evaluate comes up, I kind of get the jitters a little bit, because I don't like to evaluate. I don't like to be evaluated. But we looked at our top 6 objectives for 2016, and we achieved them to satisfactory levels, or even better. One of the things that we're most proud of is that we're available. In the last 20 days or so, we've been on the phone with 20 different coaches for good 20-minute phone calls. So any coach that wants to call us and get some advice on team coaching or, strategy or, following up on one of our online courses can do that. So that's another element from the online courses that's different than other ones, is that we make ourselves available to you because we know that, everybody's situation is different, and if you want to figure out how you can personalize it to your own uses, then get on the phone. It's on an appointment basis. We don't always have 20 minutes right now, but if we're picking up the phone, then we must be able to talk. So, get in touch with us, send us an email, and we'll talk to you for 20 minutes. I had a fun experience where last week someone called me ahead of their interview for one of the highest profile high school coaching jobs in the country. And they wanted my advice, and I was like, well, I should be taking your advice, but I'm glad you like my book. But, so there's kind of surprising things that way. I mean, it's nice to know that people value the information. So we're available. That's the number one thing. The other thing is that we're really going hard and heavy towards a mentoring approach, and that's something that's been from the beginning. Part of the disconnect in education of tennis coaches is that we're teaching it like it's high school. And, I didn't really like high school myself. It kind of felt like prison. And so, the old-time way of educating people was that, a master craftsman would visit one-on-one with an apprentice, or maybe, have a small cadre of 3 to 5 people that they were working with, or, 12. Maybe you had Jesus and the disciples, but he had his inner 3. And so that was the way of teaching, was a master and a few. And it was very, personalized instruction. And I think we've lost that, because that used to be the way. In talking to some of the greatest coaches in the world, like Bob Brett, and Frank Giampolo, and, others like that, they apprenticed under master coaches. Frank just showed up at Vic Braden Tennis College one day and said, put me to work, And, Bob Brett was under Harry Hopman, and Harry said, okay, you have to go watch that guy for X number of time, then you have to go watch that guy for a little bit of time, then you're going to coach, and I'm going to watch you. And, Bob Brett is one of the greatest ever. I'm a big believer in mentoring and apprenticing, so I'm right there with you. Yeah, so that's what we're all about. And then also it's personal. The number one way that team coaches are taught is, okay, everybody get into this conference room. The speaker's going to talk for 50 minutes to 2 hours. Take notes. There will be 5 minutes of Q&A, which of course will, cover all your in-depth questions, in the greatest depth. Maybe you get to talk to the guy for a minute afterwards if you corner him. But there isn't a lot of one-on-one interaction there. So, I mean, it works, but is it highly effective? And then, when it comes to certain times, you get, one of the greatest all-time Division I college coaches teaching high school coaches. Well, high school coaches didn't recruit their players, High school coaches have a lot of beginners who are going to come pick up a racket for the first time. I mean, there's kind of a disconnect. We think that, the greatness is going to rub off, but sometimes it's a square peg in a round hole. For sure. You have people who never coached really any team tennis at all, and, they're going to focus mainly on strokes and high-performance players. We find that the focus is so much on the 1%. The kids, they're going to play D1 and the kids in high performance tennis, but it's not often on. Okay, they want to practice. You put a racket in a kid's hand for the first time, and 2 weeks later, that kid's going to be playing a live match.
Right.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's a little bit different situation.
Yeah, and in my book, The Art of Coaching High School Tennis, I have a chapter on that. How to get a kid to, hold the racket for the first time, and in 2 weeks prepare them to play their first ever match. So, that's the crux of it. And then those kids, those are the ones that are going to become, hopefully the 4.0, 4.5, even 5.0 level players, after they graduate. And, Vic Braden said famously, if there are no 4.5s at your club, it's your fault. So, if we're not taking a kid who's a beginner, and in 4 years turning them at least into a 3.5, I don't think we're really doing a great job.
Well, and that's a nice segue, Bill, because we're coming down to our last 15 minutes here. That's a nice segue into this whole idea of athlete-centered coaching and, meeting players where they are and taking them through the progression, but beginning wherever they happen to be that time they step foot on your court for the first time.
Yes. Okay, this is going to be fun. All right. So I'm in a space right now where I don't need private lesson clientele so much. It's not really where my life is focused right now. So I'm empowered to do what I do. I don't know if this will work for everyone, but I probably get fired in 50 to 75% of my first lesson. Because I'm qualifying that student. I'm qualifying this family on whether we're going to be able to work together. Because if all three of us are athlete-centered, then we've got something. But here's there's a range here too. You get the parents who really believe in the coach and they really believe in their kid, and so they drop the kid off. They might watch the lesson. They might go shopping. They trust that something good's going to happen there. They're paying that coach, so they trust him to do his job, and those people. And then you have the parents who are a little fearful and sort of worried, and they're not really sure about their kid, and they're not really sure about the coach, and they're not really sure if they're wasting their money. So they're going to keep a close eye on it. And then with a little reassurance and a little relationship building, they're going to be okay. It just takes a little time, just a little education. And then you get those parents that are running the show, and they're in control. They control their kid. They're a consumer of the coach. They're ready to fire the coach at any time. And they may just be there just to pick the coach's brain for a little bit because they plan to steal the information and use it themselves. So you get this range, and there's different shades in between all that. So here's what I do in my first lesson. Kid comes out on the court. I just did this Saturday. I have a new client, and I love his family already. And so, we get a couple of balls, and we're kind of checking things out and making sure that the kid's relaxed on the court and that we have some rapport. And then I asked them this. All right, kid, there are three different kinds of people. There are players, parents, and coaches. Who's the decision maker? And a lot of times...
You asked the kid that.
I asked the kid that. Who's the decision maker?
Okay.
And at least 90% of the time, the kid will say, you? No. And it's kind of like they're questioning. They have no idea. No one's ever asked them this before. It's universal that no one's ever asked them. And it's 90% of the time they don't know the answer. And so they say, it's me, and I say, no. My parents, no. And then they sort of get this look of wonder on their face because by process of elimination, they discovered that it's them. Then we say, all right, okay, so you're the decision maker. All right, you, decision maker, who is your expert consultant? And they go, you. And I'm like, okay, good, that was quick. That was really fast. Thank you. The kid knows, always. That has never not happened. The kid always says it's the coach. So then the funny part is we get to the final question, who gives final approval? And sometimes the kid says me, and sometimes the kid says you, and I'm like, no. And they go, oh, it's my parents. Yes, it's your parents. Because if they don't like what's happening between me and you, it's over. Now, here's the funny part. We go to the fence at the end of the lesson, and this is when I'm about to be fired. I go to the parent, and I say, oh, you might have noticed that we were having a conversation there, and we decided that your kid is the decision maker. And a lot of parents say, well, yeah, of course. And those are the great parents. And then parents go, are you sure? And those are the ones that just need a little education on athlete-centered coaching. And then the ones that immediately go to stony face, then pretty high likelihood we're not coming back. So then I asked, and I said, and then we decide, and then your decision maker decided that I'm the expert consultant. And some parents say, of course, that's why we're paying you. And some parents go, did our kid make an okay decision? And time will tell. And then when the stony face, goes to solid granite, then I'm already saying goodbye. So, that's my introduction to athlete-centered coaching, because here's the interesting thing. That kid is going to have to hit the shot on break point at 4-5 in the third set. I'm not hitting it. You're not hitting it. They have to own their game. And that's what that two-handed backhand thing is about, too, because if that player owns that shot because they're comfortable with it, because it fits who they are and how they want to play, they will hit it under pressure. And if it's been introduced to them from the outside, like somebody drilled a hole in their head and there was a funnel and the information was inserted, they're not owning it. They will. There's a very small chance that they'll own it unless maybe there's just a really strong buy-in between that family and that kid and that coach. I mean, it can happen. I don't want to say it can't happen, but I'm just saying that an athlete-centered approach starts with the kid as the decision maker. It doesn't necessarily mean that the kid runs everything. So I'll give you a counterexample. I have a young lady I'm coaching, and she's a freshman, and she has to play number 3 on her high school team. And she's a solid kid, smart kid, not overly powerful. Had a little chat with her high school coach, and it was good. We have a good relationship, so that's nice. So he told me his thoughts, and then Mom told me her thoughts, which I pretty much instantly rejected. And Dad understands. Mom doesn't really get it, So okay, fine. So but I had to go to this kid, and I said, hey, look, I was talking to your coach, and I know that your preferred way of doing things is that we do mostly everything as a point play situation. So I know that's your preferred way, but as your expert consultant, I want to say that we have to develop more power in your game. Because for you to be able to compete with those 1 and 2 players, and for you to become the number 1 player on this team like you want to be, you're going to have to do that. So what do you want to do? Can we go through a month of working on technique? And she agreed. And if it was going to be a fight, she was going to win that fight. And I would let her, and her parents would allow me to let her fail in the short term. Because who's learning is it? It's not my learning, it's her learning. But, I'm here to tell her what I see, and it's up to her to make a choice, and then we go the direction she wants to go. And sometimes there's really incredible wisdom in what the player will choose for themselves.
For sure. And I mean, but I'm listening to this, Bill, and I have to ask you, where does the high school coach come into that conversation? Because if she's agreed that, yes, I'm willing to do the work necessary to get to that next level, but that may mean I'm not winning matches in the meantime, does the high school coach have any input in that?
Well,
or are you talking about doing this outside the season?
This is outside the season. Yeah,
got it. Okay.
I'm her private coach. She'll go back to her team in the fall.
Got it.
The coach has stuff to eat. So it's, and so it is indicative also of a relationship with a high school coach. If there is none, then and so that's another interesting topic, which has occurred to me was that athlete-centered coaches will collaborate with other coaches. Because if they really care about that kid, about the outcomes of that kid, then they will put aside their pride for a little bit, even to try to work with somebody to collaborate for the betterment of that kid. So,
well, let me ask you this, Bill. Is the term athlete-centered coaching, is that a term that's widely used in the coaching community? Because it seems to me that would be something for a family to look at when they're searching for a coach for their kid, and a question to ask. Or are there subtle ways maybe, to discern if a coach is athlete-centered or not? And keep in mind that we're down to our last 4 minutes. So.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the answer was in the question. So you made that pretty easy for me. Absolutely. I posted something on Facebook that got a lot of traction the other day, and I tried to be as iconoclastic as possible because that's my way. And I said a coach would have to be insane to think that their players could have poor character and cheat and hurt others, and for that coach to think that they're athlete-centered. The coach would have to be insane. So I think you can ask coaches questions about this and see their answer and see if their beady little eyes go left and right when they answer. And say, hey, if ask little hypotheticals. If this happened, what would you do? Or tell a past experience of a time that the player, was with a coach that wasn't very athlete-centered, and see how they react to that. I get that a lot. I get quite a few parents who want to tell me their horror story of having worked with other coaches. And, I try not to take advantage of the situation to try to slam them and praise myself, but I do want to acknowledge the pain that those parents and kids feel from that. So, offhand, I think use the phrase, what does athlete-centered coaching look like to you? Open-ended question. And if they have a ready answer, then I think that they're pretty authentic. But if they're like, wait, what? Who? What? Yeah, so you can kind of gauge that. Yeah.
It seems to me that would be a really good thing to look for as you're searching for a coach for your child. And I think, after hearing your explanation of what it means to be athlete-centered, I can't imagine there are many parents out there that wouldn't choose that type of coach for their child.
Absolutely. Being athlete-centered, let's take a team sport, right? Being athlete-centered doesn't mean that kid gets what they want. It means that you teach them the life skills that will teach them the teamwork to be able to be a cohesive part of that team, which is athlete-centered. It might not be comfortable, might not be happy, but it's for the betterment of that person. And actually, this is a book that's actually in the editing stages right now. So it's called Athlete-Centered Coaching right now, but I might change it to The Art of Coaching High School Tennis. The Art of Athlete-Centered Coaching. So it's the longest book I've ever written. So
very cool. Well, we are coming to the end of our hour together, Bill, so I want to make sure I give you the opportunity to say how people can get in touch with you, give out your websites, and all of that before we go off the air.
Yeah, thank you. And later today we're going to be sending out our blog. So we have a weekly written blog, and also we do a lot of video stuff. So the first thing is, if you're listening, I want you to send us an email at usatenniscoach@gmail.com and say join in the subject, and then we'll send you an invitation to join our email list. And we try not to do a lot of selling. There are opportunities in there always, but we try to really give out a lot of content on a weekly basis that people hopefully finding really valuable. But we're actually doing a little bit of selling in the next week or two, and then we'll kind of go back to really focusing on the content. And then we're on Instagram at USA Tennis Coach, and we're on Twitter at HS10S Coach. That's the abbreviation for high school tennis coach. And you can find me on Facebook, so go ahead and send me a friend request. And as long as you have more than one mutual friend with me, then I'll probably say yes. And if you have more than 2 pictures and none of them are in a bikini, then I'll say yes to your request.
That's awesome. Well, Bill, thanks so much, and thanks again to our sponsor, tennisballs.com, for helping keep our show on the air. Bill, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, as always, and the podcast will be online later today, and hopefully those of you listening live will share that with your friends that didn't get a chance to tune in. Bill, I'll send you the link to the podcast, too, because I know you'll share it via all your social media outlets, so thank you for that in advance. Have a great week, everybody, and thanks for joining us on Parenting Aces.
Bye, everybody.
Welcome to Staples.
Staples Guy, I've resolved to save my office money in 2017.
During Staples' January printing event, you can get up to $80 off a lightning-fast HP OfficeJet Pro printer. It can save time and money.
Oh, that kind of savings will impress the boss. Maybe this year he'll stop calling me new guy Nick.
Well, there are worse nicknames.
I've worked there 6 years, and my name's Doug.
Resolve to save during Staples' January printing event with up to $80 off HP OfficeJet Pro printers. Staples. Make more happen.
Ends 1/21/17. See store or staples.com for details. Restrictions may apply.